The stage lights burned hot. The crowd at the Orleans Arena in Las Vegas was restless, a storm of anticipation vibrating in the air. It was 2003, and the Mr. Olympia stage was about to witness something that even today feels unreal. And then he walked out. Ronnie Coleman, the man who didn't just lift weights, but made them look like toys. The music hit, the audience roared, and as Ronnie hit that first pose, time seemed to stop. His back spread wide like a set of iron wings, his muscles so dense they looked carved out of steel. In that moment, it wasn't just bodybuilding, it was a spectacle, a force of nature unleashed. But here's the question. What made Ronnie Coleman a legend, and why do people still talk about him like a living myth? Because let's be real, heavy training is not just lifting big weights. It's pain, it's sacrifice, it's laughing in the face of limits. And Ronnie, he didn't just embrace heavy training, he made it his religion. Squatting 800 pounds for reps, deadlifting weight that most strongmen feared, bench pressing 220 kilograms as if it were Monday morning cardio. The man wasn't human, he was a phenomenon. Still, behind every insane training video, every spine-tingling lift, there was a story of a small-town boy from Louisiana who grew up in poverty, who found iron not just as a sport, but as a way out, a way up, and a way to etch his name into history forever. Now, imagine you're sitting in that gym, the air thick with chalk dust, the ground trembling as Ronnie unracks a mountain of weight. He shouts his famous words, "Yeah, buddy, lightweight, baby," and the crowd of lifters freezes. Would you believe your eyes? Would you think a human body could even endure that much? Ronnie Coleman didn't just redefine bodybuilding. He broke the mold. He didn't train for show, he trained for war. And while the world remembers his 8 Mr. Olympia titles, the real secret lies in how he got there: the heavy training, the discipline, the madness that separated him from everyone else. This story isn't about numbers on a barbell. It's about the price of greatness. It's about a man who lifted until the iron broke him, and yet still smiles today, reminding us that every rep was worth it. So tonight, let's step back into the iron jungle. Let's walk beside Ronnie in the underground Metroflex gym, where sweat dripped like rain and the weights screamed in protest. Let's rewind the clock, relive the triumphs and tragedies, and uncover what it truly means to live and train like Ronnie Coleman. Because in the end, this is more than bodybuilding. This is the story of the king. Before the Olympia lights, before the deafening chants of Ronnie, there was a boy in Monroe, Louisiana, growing up in a world that didn't exactly roll out the red carpet for him. Ronnie Dean Coleman was born in 1964, the eldest son in a family that knew more about survival than luxury. His childhood wasn't padded with comfort. It was a tightrope walk between doing enough to get by and dreaming of something more. If you've ever thought your gym was rough because the air conditioning broke down, imagine Ronnie as a kid in Louisiana's relentless heat. No gym, no machines, not even the faintest idea that bodybuilding could one day be his destiny. His family had little money. His meals were simple, sometimes sparse. Junk food wasn't even an option, because, honestly, there wasn't enough spare change for that luxury. Ronnie often shared clothes with his siblings, and he knew early on that if he wanted something bigger in life, he'd have to carve it out himself. Yet, there was always that fire in him. He was strong, naturally strong. Growing up, Ronnie wasn't the kid glued to a TV or hiding in books. He was the boy who would run outside, chase footballs, and test his body against any challenge that came his way. Sports were his escape, his first taste of freedom from the weight of poverty. Football especially gave him direction. Coaches noticed something raw in him, strength that seemed beyond his age, endurance that came from more than just genetics. It came from grit. But even grit has its limits. Ronnie wasn't some golden boy who had everything lined up. In fact, after high school, life nearly cornered him. College wasn't going to pay for itself, and opportunities were thin. Yet, he pushed his way into Grambling State University, where he majored in accounting and played linebacker for the legendary coach Eddie Robinson. You heard that right. Before he was the king of Olympia, Ronnie Coleman was an accountant in training. Can you imagine that? Ronnie Coleman, in a shirt and tie, crunching numbers instead of iron. Talk about an alternate universe. Still, college didn't erase the struggles. He wasn't handed anything. He worked odd jobs, scraped together what he could, and learned discipline the hard way. You could say the hunger of those years was the forge that hardened him for what was to come. Because let's face it, when you've already learned how to survive with little, throwing 800 pounds on your back later in life feels less like insanity and more like destiny. The real turning point came after graduation. Ronnie moved to Arlington, Texas, trying to make ends meet. By day, he worked as a police officer, wearing the badge with pride. By night, he started to find his true calling inside a small, gritty gym called Metro. Picture it, a concrete-floored dungeon, rusty plates stacked against the wall, no fancy equipment, no shiny mirrors, just chalk, sweat, and raw determination. This is where Ronnie's inspiration took root. Metroflex wasn't just a gym, it was a crucible. Owned by Brian Dobson, himself a bodybuilder, Metroflex attracted lifters who didn't care about aesthetics. They cared about raw strength. Brian saw Rainier Cop with superhero genetics and the work ethic of 10 men and offered him a deal, a free gym membership if he'd compete in bodybuilding. Ronnie, humble as ever, didn't think he was cut out for it. But Brian insisted, and history was about to be written. Think about that for a second. The world's greatest bodybuilder almost never entered the sport. If not for a chance offer of a free gym membership, Ronnie might have stayed just another strong cop patrolling the streets of Arlington. Makes you wonder how many legends are hidden in plain sight, waiting for a little push. What's incredible here is how inspiration works. For Ronnie, it wasn't a glossy poster of Arnold taped to his wall or a dream of fame. His inspiration was survival. He trained hard because he knew what it was like to have nothing. He trained heavy because heavy was the only language he understood. In his world, discipline wasn't optional, it was oxygen. And yet, Ronnie always kept his humor. Even in those early days, people remember him laughing, cracking jokes, yelling out lines that would become iconic. Imagine being in Metroflex in the early 90s, hearing Ronnie hype himself up with that unmistakable voice, "Yeah, buddy, and ain't nothing but a peanut." At first, it was funny, but after you saw him toss around plates that most men couldn't budge, you realized he wasn't joking. He was dead serious. If you think going to the gym now feels miserable when every bench is taken and your pre-workout is running out, just remember Ronnie Coleman didn't start with luxury. No air conditioning, no fans watching on Instagram, just sweat dripping on dusty concrete and a cop uniform waiting for him after the session. That's the kind of foundation that doesn't just build muscle, it builds legends. So, when people later gasped at the monster he became, they forgot this truth. Ronnie Coleman's inspiration wasn't fame. It was something much harder, much sharper. It was the memory of a boy who knew struggle and decided he'd never bow to it again. The roar of the crowd was new to him. The bright lights, the smell of tanning oil, the endless wait backstage, it was a far cry from the concrete floors of Metroflex gym. Ronnie Coleman wasn't born into bodybuilding royalty. He had to stumble his way into it. And those first steps, they were anything but easy. It all started with Brian Dobson's deal, the free membership in exchange for stepping on stage. Ronnie agreed. Reluctantly, he had never imagined himself as a bodybuilder. Never thought of himself as one of those men in tiny trunks, flexing under the spotlight. To Ronnie, lifting was about strength, about testing his body's limits. But Brian knew what he was looking at. He saw potential carved out of granite, just waiting to be chiseled into legend. In 1990, Ronnie stepped onto the stage at the Mr. Texas competition. Picture this: a police officer, still working night shifts, juggling traffic stops and bench presses, walking out with zero expectations. The room wasn't packed like an Olympia, but the stakes were huge. For him, it was his first test. His first time letting the world see what only the gritty walls of Metroflex had witnessed. And guess what? He won. Not just a small victory, he took both the heavyweight and overall titles. Talk about a mic drop debut. But victories don't erase doubts. Ronnie still treated bodybuilding as a side hustle. He wasn't chasing magazine covers or sponsorship deals. In fact, while others obsessed over winning, Ronnie kept clocking in at the police department, writing tickets during the day, lifting like a maniac at night. That humility, that groundedness, was part of what made him so magnetic. Imagine seeing the guy who just smoked the Mr. Texas stage pulling you over for speeding on your way home. Would you even argue? The funny thing is, those early wins didn't rocket him to the top. Far from it. Ronnie had the body, but not the polish. The pro stages demanded more: conditioning, posing, and the art of presentation. He was a powerhouse, yes, but he was raw. The bodybuilding world at the time was dominated by names like Lee Haney, Dorian Yates, and Sean Ragiance in their own right. Next to them, Ronnie was just the rookie, the cop who lifts. And let's be honest, his first attempts on the pro stage were rough. He didn't place well, often standing off to the side, overlooked, could have quit right there, chalked it up to a fun experiment, and returned to a full-time police career. But Ronnie wasn't wired that way. He wasn't chasing trophies. He was chasing growth. Every time he lost, every time he got buried in the placings, he went back to Metroflex and asked himself one question: how much harder can I push? This is where his philosophy began to shift. Ronnie realized that his greatest weapon wasn't just size, it was his willingness to outwork everyone. He wasn't the most genetically blessed, at least not compared to the razor-sharp symmetry of guys like Flex Wheeler. He wasn't the polished poser like Sean Ray. But Ronnie had something almost terrifying: a refusal to stop. His solution to being overlooked: train heavier, train harder, push until the weight screamed. And slowly, that started to turn heads. By the mid-90s, Ronnie was building a reputation not as a star yet, but as the guy in the corner who trained like a lunatic. Other pros would come into Metroflex and shake their heads as they watched him squat and deadlift. Weights meant for powerlifters, not bodybuilders. It didn't make sense. The sport was supposed to be about sculpting, about controlled volume, about finesse. Ronnie was rewriting the rules with every rep, proving that heavy training didn't just build strength, it built a look no one could match. There's a great irony here. At the 1992 Chicago Pro, Ronnie placed dead last. Think about that. The man who would one day be crowned 8-time Mr. Olympia was once the guy finishing dead last on a pro stage. If you were in the audience that night, would you have bet $1 that this nobody would change the entire sport? Probably not. But that's the beauty of legends. They're not obvious at first. They sneak up on history until history has no choice but to kneel. And Ronnie's big break came not from a stage win, but from persistence. By 1995, he started gaining traction. His body was morphing into something different, bigger, fuller, denser. Judges began to notice the insane combination of size and conditioning he brought. He wasn't just another competitor anymore. He was a problem. Then came 1996, when he claimed his first professional victory at the Canada Pro Cup. It wasn't the Olympia, but it was enough to light the fuse. Ronnie Coleman was no longer just a police officer with freak genetics. He was a legitimate threat in the bodybuilding world. What's crazy is that Ronnie never let this newfound recognition inflate his ego. He still worked shifts. He still treated fans and strangers with the same southern humility. In fact, Many stories from this era talk about Ronnie showing up at events in his police uniform because he came straight from work. Imagine being in line for an autograph and seeing the guy with the biggest back on earth wearing a badge and a gun on his hip. Surreal. But beneath that humble exterior, a storm was brewing. Ronnie was starting to believe in himself, not in a cocky way, but in the quiet, deadly, serious way that champions do. He had tasted what victory felt like, and more importantly, he had tasted what losing felt like. And to Ronnie, losing wasn't failure, it was fuel. By the time the late 90s rolled around, the bodybuilding scene was shifting. The reign of Dorian Yates was coming to an end. The stage was about to open up for a new king. And while many thought the crown would go to Flex Wheeler or Sean Ray, no one realized that the cop from Texas, the guy who once finished dead last, was quietly loading the bar at Metroflex, preparing to shock the world. And if you've ever wondered what separates the good from the great, here's your answer. Ronnie Coleman didn't chase the stage. He let the stage chase him. His first steps were clumsy, full of losses and doubts. But he never stopped moving forward, never stopped lifting heavier, never stopped believing that one day, the world would see what Brian Dobson saw in him on that very first day. The late 1990s were a turning point in bodybuilding. Dorian Yates, the Shadow, had dominated the Mr. Olympia stage with his granite-like conditioning and monstrous size. But his era was drawing to a close. The bodybuilding world was buzzing with speculation. Who would take the throne? Many had their money on Flex Wheeler, a man whose symmetry and aesthetics were practically carved by the gods. Others pointed to Sean Ray, with his polish and charisma. Very few, if any, whispered the name Ronnie Coleman. After all, Ronnie was the quiet cop from Arlington, Texas, the guy who had finished dead last in competitions only a few years before. But the iron doesn't lie, and when Ronnie stepped onto the Olympia stage in 1998, something shifted. He wasn't just another competitor. He was a storm wrapped in muscle. His back looked alien, so wide, so detailed, that even seasoned judges sat stunned. His legs, tree trunks, veined and dense. His overall mass was overwhelming, yet his conditioning was razor sharp. He didn't just show up, he detonated. Against every odd, Ronnie Coleman claimed his first Mr. Olympia title in 1998, shocking the entire industry. The crowd didn't know whether to cheer or question reality. Had they just witnessed the birth of a new king? Or was this a one-off miracle? The answer came quickly, and it was heavy, literally. From 1998 to 2005, Ronnie Coleman ruled bodybuilding with an iron grip. 8 consecutive Olympia titles cemented his place alongside Lee Haney, who also held 8. But let's be honest, Ronnie wasn't just winning. He was redefining what a human body could look like. Every year, he pushed further, showing up with more size, more detail, more density. He was the living embodiment of heavy training, proof that pushing past the brink could create something almost otherworldly. And the world didn't just watch him win, they watched him train. Those iconic training videos filmed at Metroflex were unlike anything bodybuilding fans had ever seen. Other pros polished their posing routines. Ronnie was in a dungeon-like gym, screaming lightweight, baby, as he squatted 800 pounds for reps. Yes, you read that right. 800 pounds. Not once, not twice, but 4 deep, back-breaking reps. His deadlifts were the stuff of legend. 800 pounds pulled cleanly, raw, in a sweat-soaked t-shirt, and his bench press. 220 kilograms, tossed like it was chest day for mortals. What made those videos so electrifying wasn't just the weight, it was Ronnie's spirit. He wasn't just lifting, he was at war. He'd hype himself up, bellowing, "Yeah, buddy," and ain't nothing but a peanut. Fans laughed, sure, but they also believed. Ronnie made the impossible look possible, and in doing so, he invited every lifter in the world to dream bigger. No golden age is complete without rivals, and Ronnie had them. Flex Wheeler, with his godlike symmetry, was considered the man most likely to wear the crown. And for years, fans debated aesthetics or mass. Flex represented the ideal shape, the flowing lines, the classic proportions. Ronnie represented brute force, size, and density unmatched in history. Their showdowns on stage were electric. Two titans standing side by side, each embodying a different philosophy of bodybuilding. Sean Ray, the ever-charismatic, razor-conditioned competitor, never shied away from criticizing the judging or throwing shade at Ronnie's size-focused approach. Kevin Levrone, known as the Maryland Muscle Machine, also pushed Ronnie with his insane genetics and stage presence. But year after year, when the dust settled, the Sando Trophy went home with Ronnie. It wasn't just competition, it was theater. The Olympia stage became a battlefield where styles clashed, egos collided, and history was written in veins and striations. Fans argued, debated, sometimes even booed. But Ronnie's dominance was undeniable. Every time he hit that rear lot spread, the debate ended. No one had ever seen a back like his, a dense tapestry of muscle that looked less like anatomy and more like a map of another world. But what made Ronnie truly untouchable wasn't just genetics, it was how he trained. Heavy training wasn't a slogan for him. It was a way of life. He believed that to build the greatest physique, you had to push the body with the kind of weights that scared everyone else. While most bodybuilders stuck to moderate loads, focusing on form and pump, Ronnie was loading plates like he was preparing for a strongman contest. Hack squats with 900 pounds, barbell rows with 500, walking lunges across the parking lot with 180-pound dumbbells on each side. It wasn't logical. It wasn't even safe by conventional standards. But Ronnie thrived on it. He believed heavy training didn't just build size, it built density. The kind of muscle that didn't just show under stage lights but seemed to glow with raw power. And here's the kicker. He wasn't reckless. For all his screaming and intensity, Ronnie was precise. He knew his form, his limits, and his rhythm. His famous 800-pound squat wasn't some ego lift. It was the product of years of conditioning, calculated progression, and iron will. Let's pause here for a second. Imagine you're a young lifter in the early 2000s, sitting in front of a bulky TV, popping in the DVD Ronnie Coleman, The Unbelievable. You watch, jaw on the floor, as Ronnie loads plate after plate, the bar bending, the weights rattling. And then you hear it. Lightweight, baby. You laugh, you scream, maybe you even scare your mom in the other room. But inside, something clicks. If Ronnie can squat a car's worth of iron and call it lightweight, maybe your own limits aren't so set in stone. That's the kind of magic Ronnie brought not just to bodybuilding, but to every fan who ever touched a barbell. By the early 2000s, Ronnie wasn't just a champion, he was the king. 8 Sandos lined up like trophies of war, and fans around the world treated him like a living superhero. He toured, guest posed, filmed more DVDs, and inspired millions. Yet, he never lost that humble edge. He was still the cop from Texas, still smiling, still cracking jokes in that high-pitched voice. Fame didn't change Ronnie. If anything, Ronnie changed fame. He showed that you could be the best in the world and still treat everyone around you with kindness. But with greatness comes a shadow. The heavy training that made him a legend was also slowly tearing his body apart. Fans cheered the lifts, but behind the scenes, the toll was mounting. His back, his hips, his joints, they were all absorbing the cost of greatness. The golden age was glorious, but like all golden ages, it carried the seeds of tragedy. So, if you were in the crowd in 2003, watching Ronnie Coleman hit that infamous rear lot spread, the one that looked more like a fortress than a human body, would you believe this man was built from the same flesh and bone as the rest of us? Or would you think, just for a moment, that a god had walked among mortals? The story of Ronnie Coleman isn't just about victories, it's also about sacrifice. For nearly a decade, the world watched him dominate the Olympia stage, lift inhuman weights, and smile through it all. But behind the chance of lightweight, baby, there was a price being paid. One plate, one rep, one bone at a time. Heavy training built the legend, but it also carved deep scars into his body. Ronnie wasn't just squatting 800 pounds for a show. He was training like that week after week, year after year. The spine that held up those monumental squats. The hips that carried those lunges across the parking lot. The knees that bore the brunt of leg presses, stacked with a mountain of plates, all of them were slowly breaking. At first, it was manageable nagging aches, soreness that lingered longer than usual. But over time, those aches became injuries, and those injuries became structural damage. Herniated discs, compressed nerves, worn cartilage. Ronnie's body was a battlefield, and the war wasn't slowing down. Fans saw the glory. What they didn't see was Ronnie struggling to walk upstairs after training. They didn't see the nights he lay awake, back spasms shooting like lightning through his legs. The king was in pain, but the king never complained. With dominance always comes criticism. Detractors claimed Ronnie's size was too much, that he represented bodybuilding's descent into freakishness. They whispered about performance-enhancing drugs, as they did with all pros, but with Ronnie, the whispers turned into debates, then into accusations. Some argued that his extreme size was destroying the aesthetics of the sport. Others believed the judging was biased, rewarding mass monsters over symmetry and shape. Rival fans cried foul, pointing to Flex Wheeler's lines, Sean Ray's conditioning, or Jay Cutler's balance. But year after year, the sando landed in Ronnie's hands. To his supporters, the criticism was jealousy. To his detractors, it was proof the sport had lost its way. But Ronnie, he brushed it off. For him, the stage wasn't about politics or aesthetics. It was about outworking every man alive. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to redefine what winning meant. If Ronnie's golden age was defined by Flex Wheeler, then his twilight was defined by Jay Cutler. Jay wasn't just another competitor, he was a machine, a man whose work ethic nearly matched Ronnie's own. For years, Jay chased him, finishing runner-up at Olympia after Olympia. Each time, Ronnie stood tall, sando in hand, while Jay stood just a step behind. But the gap was closing. By the mid-2000s, Jay's conditioning, size, and balance had evolved to the point where fans and judges could no longer deny him. In 2006, the unthinkable happened. Ronnie Coleman was dethroned. His quest for a 9th Olympia, which would have broken the all-time record, ended in heartbreak. The crowd was stunned. Ronnie, the indestructible king, had fallen. Still, his dignity never wavered. He smiled, congratulated Jay, and raised his rival's hand. It was the passing of the torch, a moment that revealed not just Ronnie's strength, but his character. If losing the Olympia was painful, it was nothing compared to what came after. Years of heavy lifting had left Ronnie's spine in ruins. Surgery was no longer optional, it was survival. The first surgeries were supposed to be routine. Doctors assured him he'd recover, maybe even train again. But one surgery became 2, then 3, then 4. As of today, Ronnie Coleman has endured more than a dozen back and hip surgeries. Metal rods and screws hold his body together like a machine. Walking without assistance became impossible. At times, he relied on crutches or a wheelchair. The videos that once showed him conquering weights now showed him struggling to walk. For fans, it was heartbreaking. For Ronnie, it was reality. Yet even as the pain grew unbearable, his spirit didn't break. He famously said, "If I had the chance to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing." That single statement tells you everything you need to know about Ronnie Coleman. For him, the glory was worth the pain. The 8 sandos, the respect, the legacy, they justified the cost. Not everyone agreed. Fans debated whether Ronnie had pushed too far, whether his approach was reckless, whether heavy training was worth a price. Some pitied him, others criticized him, saying he should have trained lighter, been smarter. But Ronnie himself never saw it that way. He believed that greatness required sacrifice, and that his sacrifice was his choice. The bodybuilding world, however, was forced to confront a darker truth. Was the pursuit of mass and dominance, pushing athletes beyond the boundaries of health? Were the legends being built at the cost of their lives and futures? Ronnie became both an inspiration and a cautionary tale, a living reminder of both the heights and dangers of extreme dedication. Despite the pain, Ronnie never lost his trademark positivity. He laughed, he joked, he still shouted, "Yeah, buddy," even from a hospital bed. Fans visiting him were struck not by despair, but by his unshakable joy. His spirit was unbreakable, even as his body betrayed him. That duality, greatness and suffering, triumph and tragedy, defines Ronnie's story. He showed the world that humans can achieve the impossible, but also reminded us that every victory carries a cost. By the late 2000s, Ronnie's competitive career was over. His body could no longer endure the stage, the lifts, the grind. The king had stepped down, but his shadow loomed larger than ever. No one since has matched his combination of size, conditioning, and raw density. His 8 sandos remained untouchable to most, his lifts still legendary, his presence still mythic. And so, the golden age gave way to darkness, not the darkness of obscurity, but the darkness of pain. Ronnie Coleman, the man who once walked like a titan, now walked with crutches. The irony was cruel, yet profoundly human. The strongest man in bodybuilding history was fragile, broken, yet smiling all the same. So, when you ask, was it worth it? Ronnie answers without hesitation. Yes, every second, every rep, every plate, worth it. Ronnie Coleman's career may have ended, but his influence never did. He didn't just raise the bar in bodybuilding, he rewrote the rules. Before him, champions were impressive. After him, they had to be superhuman. His mass, conditioning, and raw strength created a new standard the sport still measures itself against. His impact touched everyone who followed. Pros like Jay Cutler and Branch Warren admitted Ronnie's training intensity pushed them harder. Young lifters copied his grit, shouting, "Yeah, buddy," as they piled plates on the bar. Even those who never competed found inspiration in his no excuses philosophy. Hard work over shortcuts, discipline over talent, joy in the struggle. Ronnie's gritty training videos became cult classics, watched not just for instruction, but for motivation. They showed a man who loved the process, who laughed through pain, and who found purpose in lifting the heaviest weights possible. And even today, across gyms worldwide, his presence lingers. Say, "Ain't nothing but a peanut," in UK, Canada, or USA, and someone will grin, understanding. That's legacy, not trophies gathering dust, but words, moments, and spirit carried forward. Ronnie Coleman became more than a champion. He became a symbol of possibility. Ronnie Coleman's story began under the blazing Olympia lights, where his physique seemed to defy human limits. But beyond the glory, his journey revealed sacrifice, pain, and a truth he never denied. "I wouldn't change a thing." His career reads like a hero's arc, from a poor kid in Louisiana, to a police officer training between shifts, to 8-time Mr. Olympia, and finally, a man whose body broke but whose spirit never did. He showed us that greatness is never free. It demands your comfort, your health, your very soul, and yet, the reward is immortality. Ronnie's true legacy isn't just the sandos or the insane lifts. It's the lesson that heavy training is more than weights. It's life itself, carrying burdens, pushing limits, and refusing to quit when everything tells you to stop. So the question for you is simple. What's your heavy weight? Will you lift it? The Olympia stage may be quiet now, but Ronnie's fire still burns. His body may be scarred, Yet his words echo across gyms worldwide. Lightweight, baby, ain't nothing but a peanut. That's the secret of heavy training. And that's why Ronnie Coleman will always be the king.